Okay, this is an enterprise committee meeting, and it's discuss ML&P, capital costs, and we've invited the commission, and could we all go around starting with you?
Amy Dombrowski.
Patrick Flynn.
Jennifer Johnston?
Tim Steele.
Dick Trainee.
Elby Gray Jackson.
Chris Birch. George Michaelis.
Eugene Orr.
Jim Posey. Rick Miller.
And in the back of the room?
Bob Shea, Commissioner on ML&P.
Judy Brady, Commissioner, ML&P.
Thank you. So who will be presenting, and would you like?
I'll start it off if that's all right,
Okay,
Madam
and
Chair.
then, would you like us to ask questions as you go along, or would you like to?
I think asking the questions as we go along would be the better way to handle this.
Okay.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for convening the Enterprise Committee for this. I called Ms. Johnson about a week ago or so and asked if she'd convene the committee so that ML&P could go over a pretty significant change order that will be coming before the Assembly, so they could discuss what led up to the point and why it's necessary. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to the project manager.
Good afternoon, Assembly. I have a packet of handout, which is just an outline and AM and department memo. Okay, as I stated, my name is Eugene Ori, and I'm here to talk about this change order 2 to the Pickle contract for South Station storage area. It's it's $4.95 million, and what I'd like to do is speak to my outline here today, talk about the major site impacts that led us up to where we're at, other conflicts and project schedules that complicated the matters, where we're at with negotiations with the contractor, and where we're at with this memo going forward, and then close with a kind of a discussion going forward. Up front, I'd like to apologize for the late submission of this memo, and as well as the magnitude of it, and the fact that we are beyond the current spending authority within this contract. I want to get that out up front, and as I'll explain in a minute, what we were trying to do is get our hands around the entire magnitude of it and put it in one change order for your approval. And in hindsight, AIM should have been prepared and dropped into the system. Personally, I haven't done that before, but that should have been done. So that's the opening here, and I just want to give a little quick background of the project for everyone's benefit. That this is this contract is the pushing together of multiple things, and chiefly it is the replacement of the gas pipeline from the NSTAR White building, where it's delivered, gas is delivered to plant 2, down to plant 2 at the bottom of the screen. And as that had always been conceived, the piping is 30 plus years old, and we knew that it needed replacing. As we were developing this project, we recognized that there's a lot of utilities that needed upgrading that had not been properly surveyed or outlined in the past, and we grew the project to right-sizing the utilities for both Plant 2, AWW, which is a water plant off to the right of the screen, and preparing a site that would aid in the support of construction of Plant 2. Previously, I've spoken to Plant 2A, Plant 2A is the flat spot near the left of the red outline box. So all those things were what was conceived and spec'd and put into the ITB that was put out the first part of the year, and that Roger Hickel won. So so I'm going to go into the discussion of the major site impacts, and where we're at is initially we got off to a rocky start due to delays due to Migratory Bird Act window closing on us before the contractor could get started removing the overburden. We had known that was a possibility at the NTP for a contractor, and there's provisions underneath that act that allow you to move forward with construction activities as long as you have a qualified federal bird watch person. And the contractor went down that path, and they actually did find a pair of nesting small songbirds, and that Fish and Game basically said you can't move forward after that. That put us in a delay pattern till July 15th. And I'll speak more to the snowballing effects of that in a minute, but that was a major source of delay here. So we lost a good first half of the construction season for that, and we moved forward with, when the contractor mobilized, they very shortly got into unusable soil conditions. And while we had foreseen that, we didn't foresee the magnitude of this. And I'll speak more to that in a minute, but that was, and remains to be the largest portion of this change order request. And then finally, there is already a congested site, a difficult site to access, and to the top of the screen is a driveway that we had conceived getting access to, but it's actually on military land. Right across the green at the top of the screen is military land. And we had applied for this permit through BLM May of 2012, and we did not receive that until end of August this year. So the contractor was jammed up, if you will, with equipment and claimed delays that were beyond their control for those reasons. And we thought a year advance for getting a permit was acceptable. It was not. So I want to talk on item number 3, subset and follow-on conditions that are within those 3 major categories. Number 1, the bird window delay cost us big time, mainly because the majority of this project, replacing these gas pipes, 30-plus-year-old pipes, had been scheduled almost a year in advance, both with MLP dispatching, because in order to replace them, you have to shut the plant down, and this plant does not shut down in general unless it's a problem. So it had been coordinated with both MLP dispatch and all the dispatches of the rail-built energy utilities to have an outage at the end of September to cut over these pipes. And we elected to move forward to not impede that outage or move it because there's a follow-on effects with other utilities. And that's that. I spoke to, just cancel that if you can. That's one aspect of the schedule delays. Secondly, we could not slip a pole or shut down for the winter, if you will, for this project, because we have to assign it to another contractor that's going to be building plant 2. So this is what I wanted to show you, which was the estimate area of the unusable soils at where we're at today. And in the bid we had 15,000 cubic yards of unusable soils, and we very quickly surpassed that into August and September. And where we're at is the majority of them are coming from back here. We had seen these in a geotechnical study. We had studied the whole front face of this project, mainly for the gas pipeline. But as we expanded the project, we didn't properly get the geotech details for that. Turns out it was, it appears to be buried material from 30 or 40 years ago when this plant was built and they sloughed off overburden and or the fuel tank piping for plant 2. So there was rotting organic matter from days past back there. And again, so that is now quantified, and that is just shy of 60,000 cubic yards. And the original was 15,000. I want to show also, these purple circles are the water entrainment systems for the project. That when we studied the project, we could not be hooked up to, or was uneconomical to hook up drainage to AWW storm sewer or storm drain. That was the nearest place for that was across Muldoon, and it was prohibitively expensive. So going down the path of getting permitting to take care of your own drains on site was pretty large, and this is one area that we actually upsized it a bit because it was only sized for a gravel pad, and we're this far into it, we wanted to make it complete for construction purposes down the road. We have some conceptual uses for this property after the construction of Plant 2A, and that was the time to fix that. So there's huge domes underground, if you will, to contain the water for the project. I spoke a little bit earlier as the delay due to the BLM driveway. That's roughly where it's at, and that cost us time. Well, it cost us money because we couldn't give up too much time because we were having upwards of 300 side dump trucks a day come and go from the site, getting rid of materials and bringing in new. And this purple spaghetti is my attempt to show that the constraints due to utilities. There's 5 types of utilities, and to be honest, most of them were not surveyed. The only ones we were sure of were the above ground ones. And so there's electrical, gas, AWW, communications from ACS, and as well as buried distribution lines. And we had to work very carefully around this. In some cases, small change within here was requested additional safety watches so that machinery did not touch energized equipment. Some things were not surveyed, and in fact, we hit a buried AWW drain pipe that was not surveyed properly, but it was multi-decades old. It's just a contributing factor here. This WA color, I guess you'd call it, is the gas pipeline, both parts of Plant 2, and it's just superfluous. This down in the lower left corner of the red project box is where there was, when we sped up the schedule to not lose the season and not adjust the maintenance window to shut Plant 2 down for gas pipeline cutover, it was already tight site, and we had contractors on top of contractors, and that causes, you can only get so efficient, and it gets inefficient, and that's where we were at. So those are the details of how and where we're at with the overages here. I want to talk a little bit more about timeline and the negotiations we had with the contractor, Roger Hickel. 6 weeks into construction, they had notified us that they had a delay, but it wasn't quantified. And when they did quantify it, it was around the $3 million range on the bid tab cost for due to dirt. At this point, but that wasn't something that they were submitting hard. It was verbally telling us. At that point, should have probably stopped and or requested additional approval. However, we moved forward and with the intention to capture all costs so that we could bring it forth in one change order. By the end of September, we had a hard number from them, or it was variable by the day, but they had a number. The contractor had their hands around the number, and they were submitting those to us. And we had several machinations of, no, that's not the correct way to claim under mass. That's not, we don't pay for that kind of overhead, et cetera. And we lost several weeks there in the back and forth. So what I'm saying is I had a stronger number, but I didn't have the paperwork to submit the change order. That paperwork was only completed Friday, I guess, the 18th, and item 5 here, we prepared our department memo last week, and are here to present that to you today. So that's the, I guess, high-level explanation of where we're at, and I'd like to entertain questions.
Ms. Dombrowski?
First thing, can you please reiterate or specifically tell us how this backlog is going to affect the larger project?
Yes, ma'am. This is not going to affect the project. It would not now. I was concerned for 2 reasons: to move forward and not lose the season, regardless of the massive increase in scope, because we have to assign most of that red box to the contractor come the first of the year. And so I moved forward, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to impact them, because the red box is essentially the staging area for the contractor. The second point I'd like to make note of is that at one time, the Moab pipeline was the only part of the project that the MLP was going to take on our own. But as we were developing Plant 2A, we quickly recognized that we need more space for the contractor to stage, or they're going to bid a higher cost in order to truck material from off-site. And so that's how one of the contributing reasons why the project grew, and so that we could tell the bidding contractors that you will have approximately 4 acres assigned to you for your duties for building a plant. Even in the red box, we're pushing limits because it's tight. It's urban construction. Ideally, for heavy industrial construction, they'd like to have 5 acres for every 1 acre of completed site. The flat spot to the left is the future plant, and it's about 3 acres. So you could say ideally if they had their druthers, a contractor would like to have 15 acres. As such, we're only giving them about 4, and so they can adjust. But what I'm saying is, it was a good thing, and we believe a cost-reducing measure for the overall project to have a flat spot that we controlled, that they could work from.
Mr. Steele?
Yeah, boy, what a fix. The current status is that you have taken out all the soil you need to take out. You have brought in all the stable soil or fill. What about all the lines and the water reservoirs, if you will? Does that reduce or eliminate what you have in mind for it after 2A?
No, sir.
Because right away, you're not going to build anything over the top of some of these pipes or lines.
Actually, Mr. Steele, the light blue box is the entrainment area is rated for construction over the top of it. I would not believe it unless the engineers told me it, and because generally you don't do that, but it's rated for heavy loads and or construction. Those boxes are about half again as big as they were conceived to be. Within this cost, this overall change order, I'm speaking about $500,000. And however, where we were at is this site will be acceptable for construction on top of it. At one time, it's not being brought forward, but at one time it's in our IRP to have backup fuel as a small scale LNG facility. And this would be a site that it could be a small scale LNG if we bring that forward and we could go directly to construction. Likewise, the pipeline had to be replaced. In some places the main pipeline to plant 2, as well as bringing a stub up for the new plant. And just like the rest of the utilities, we didn't know exactly how it was surveyed, and in fact it was in some places a foot deep, and then when we analyzed it, it was not to code in terms of pipe strength. And I, to be honest, I told Mr. Posey we have to replace this pipe before we get into plant 2A because it's a big risk. We don't want something happening. Now the pipe that's been replaced is rated. We know it's rated for heavy traffic on top of it, and we know there will be no issues.
What about all the blue lines, ACS and everybody else?
That is, I'm going to say, it's in here. It's about $400,000 is alignment, relocation of both unknown and or utilities. So ACS is relocated, AWW, and then the majority of those are MLP transmission facilities that are now built on proper soils and lifted at higher.
Is relocated or will be relocated?
It is.
So all those blue lines are gone?
Yeah. No, sir. They are.
Or
they're aligned higher if necessary. Yes.
Mr. Birch?
I just had a curiosity, was curious about the level of exploration that went on ahead of time, just as an old geotechnical guy. Did you punch some holes in out there, or what? I just was kind of curious as to why some of that didn't show up when you were taking a look at it initially.
Yeah, Mr. Birch, in 2012, we removed the hillside, and we did a total of 13 boreholes, both where the plant was going to be, very deep, deeper than normal, because if you remember there was a 40, 50-foot hillside and it was removed, as well as along the front face here, because we had known that that's where the gas pipeline was going to be replaced, and we wanted to know what we were up against. After this project, there were, if you watched it, there was 200,000 cubic yards of great material that I believe a contractor was Davis Massex, took from us and sold to Siri at the North Eagle River exit in Clutha, North Eagle River exit, and placed in a hole, and now they have great construction space. There was almost no poor soils there. Except there were some cobbles, and this is kind of interesting, sand and cobbles, and we actually think it was like at one time a channel, Ship Creek. When we got back here in the yellow areas, it was totally different. This is definitely construction debris from other facilities in the past, but through it was kind of a common theme throughout that it was much poorer soils than this. So, yeah,
Didn't get enough holes in the backside there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, as far as N-Star ownership, they own everything going north of the
Yes, of the
red line, and so you're basically responsible, just like
Yes.
it's on your property, you own the responsibility for replacing the line inside there.
I will also admit something that is new to us for about 2 years is that we own those pipes. That was not entirely clear to us. So
Which pipes?
the pipes that we replaced.
Oh.
So we we own them. Well, I guess we better inspect them. And when we inspected them, they were in good condition, except they were built to 70s code that is not acceptable today. And we elected, because there's a whole lot of unknowns, no as-built in our system, et cetera, we need to replace these because it is a risk that we didn't even know we had. Just that's part of that. And it was a decent time because we were going to need to stub up to make a branch connection to the new plant anyway. And while I'm speaking to that, if I can, so we found out we owned something we didn't really know we owned. We said we better inspect it. It wasn't rusting or corroding, but it wasn't up to code. And thirdly, the new plant, we're going to work to deal with N-Star where they're going to allow us the transmission gas line pressure instead of reducing it, such that we don't have to operate gas compressors all the time, which means you don't have to spend electricity to compress up your gas. You can sell the electricity. The plant will be more efficient. And so it's a good thing. So the pipes are built for the higher 1,000 PSI gas line pressure.
So were those lines originally installed by N-Star or by ML&P?
We think they were ML&P only because when we replaced the lines by Unit 7 and Unit 8, we looked at it and said, and I asked the question, is that according to code? Because it looked pretty thin to me from my North Slope experience. And we found out it would not meet code. So it really was installed as part of Unit 7, but it wasn't in the records like a lot of other things. Plant 2 was built piecemeal, a piece here, a piece there. Whenever the ML&P got money, they build another piece. And when you do that, you don't get the complete package of everything being done that should be done.
And you couldn't pull the contributed capital flag and say it was N-Star's?
Would've been nice
Add
to
it
do
to
that.
their system, right?
It's our, after it leaves their meter, it usually means it's your
No,
pipe.
meter this way. Thanks.
Mr. Flynn?
First, if I misheard you, the red outlined area was the original project scope, correct? For this contract?
For this contract, yes, sir. I was speaking to how we developed this contract.
And I guess I'll ask the obvious question for which I presume I know the answer. We were aware of these issues when we were talking last month about a much larger contract, right?
We were aware that there were issues. We did not have dollars assigned to them. I had known it was in the millions.
You realize how troubling that is, right?
Yeah, I have been. I'm not feeling so hot given what Mr. Michaelis was laying on me last week, and
I didn't have much of a, you-know-what left back, so.
I do want to state that this is a project that is separate from our large capital construction project. It was being handled by my staff under other duties as assigned, and it literally is one of the 21 projects around the periphery that we're doing, some big, some small, this being the biggest, to prepare the site and to not impede progress of the large construction project.
I
I guess I would like to also speak to, perhaps what you're getting at, Mr. Flynn, is that I really do not see this overage relating to the next project for the following reasons. We have hired and outsourced a construction owner's engineer and construction management team, IEC Corporation, who's been guiding us along the way to get us to where we're at today and will continue. It's almost a sublet of the entire project. Further, within that project, we have always conceived and plan to move forward with detailed monthly reports to MLP Commission, Mr. Michaelis' office, as well as quarterly reports to the Assembly. And yeah, so and then I would also like to I guess explain that I felt like we were behind the power curve, and I know it sounds silly, but I just had never dropped a memo in the PACE, as a notification only. I had gone through purchasing, and we were losing weeks clicking away here and making it worse in October, basically, trying to get into the negotiations complete with Roger Hill.
And to further on that, over the last 3 years, as contractors came up knowing that we were doing this project, first thing they asked me is, who's going to do and are you going to do the dirt work? Because once you go below the surface, you always find some unexpected things more than anything else. And they wanted to know that it was going to be in the bid package or outside the bid package, all of the extraneous preparing the site for construction, because they have to put that risk into their number. And generally, they did not want to do that, and they encouraged me to make sure that that happened, and we did turn that over and say, hey, let's buy the turbines, which is risk A, which is bigger, it was $54 million. And risk B was removing the dirt and prepping a site for them.
Ms. Kowalski?
This really ticks me off, to be honest. When I was listening to what you were saying about the bird delay, which you anticipated, those were your words. You talked about N-Star gas line, which you anticipated, those were your words, these all being challenges. And then 6 weeks in, you were notified of the delay, which was a $3 million range. The contract was $5.3 million. You're talking about almost, more than half the cost of the contract, and this body wasn't aware of it. Then we have a $200 million project that you're saying isn't going to be delayed or impeded by this. But if you knew 6 weeks in of a cost $3 million delay and you didn't bother to even mention it to us, it ticks me off. How are we supposed to have confidence in a $200 million project that things aren't going to be hidden? That's the challenge I have, because all the things that you guys have outlined are all rational reasons why there is a cost overrun. I get that. But I believe in transparency, and I don't like things being hidden. We're in the business of making sure that people's tax money is paid for or spent well, and accountability. But if we can't have open and honest dialogue, it makes me question the larger project. And I'm sure you can understand that. I would hope you can. So, that's the challenge I have moving forward. If things like this come up, we want to know about it sooner rather than later. And I get what you're saying. You didn't have the backup, you didn't have the financials, but there could have been some sort of sign. You know what? We're having these issues. Anything. But this type of relationship doesn't work for me.
And just before you, I have a question. We know going forward that there's going to be a reporting system. As far as the summer work, were you working with the MLMP administration on a weekly basis as far as this contract, or with the administration? So there were people that were aware that there were problems, or the commission? I know that you're sitting out there like a sore thumb, but I wanna know, who had your back?
Ms. Johnston, let's see. I'm trying to get my dates right here. When we allowed the contractor to proceed on July 15th, it was not until the end of August that they notified us that they're gonna be delayed. And then they used the full 60 days afforded to them under Mass to then quantify those delays. And so, while I understand that they're trying to manage risk and only throw a number out when they absolutely have to the city, I didn't know what they were. When I felt that they were pushing $1 million or more on my Monday meetings with general manager, I reported that we have a problem. It's dirty dirt and delays is the majority of it. I don't have the bottom of it in terms of cost, and I recommend we keep moving forward due to keeping the schedule. And so I've been speaking to that every Monday for a while.
So weekly meetings through this whole period you were having with MLMP administration, and then it wasn't until last week that Mr. Michaelis.
No, I'm going to say at the end of September, numbers were being thrown around $3 million, and that's when I notified you, and I believe that's when I notified you. But I had always conceived of getting to the bottom of this by the end of September, and it literally took most of October to negotiate those pushback, check them. We have a geotech firm working on our behalf, checking tabs and making sure that everyone's square and there's not anything like that.
Were you at any time ever thinking litigation? Or was it more just you were looking at just the contractors, you were just proving up the numbers?
I was never thinking litigation. In fact, in our department memo in the package, the contractors worked with us. They due to constraints in the tight site, General was lending equipment to electrical and or the Udohoven, who was the piping subcontractor, and not charging us up for that. And General was not charging the full round trip for material. They were co-locating things, and they were working with us.
We've had that experience before, Ms. Johnson, where trying to change a contractor in the middle of the stream after they've had a problem. We had boiler unit 7, where 2002, 2003. And we chose to tell the contractor we'll agree to disagree at the end, but continue to work. But the solid contract, hard number contract was the contract. And we did go to court, and as a consequence of that, we saved money by moving ahead because we didn't let the contractor know that our gas costs were kicking our butt more than anything else. We went to court, we paid what we already had in the budget as part of it, but because they messed up by having two supervisors who basically were alcoholics, they were put out of business by their insurance company because we made a claim against them. So you do those kinds of things, you weigh it. We were within the budget limits at that time, and we did, and that's the last big project where we had a contractor to come in with a huge change order, and we said, under our contract, you were at fault for freezing.
And what kind of notification of the administration and the assembly on that one did you do?
We notified them that we may be in court, but the contract number was the contract. It was a hard dollar contract. The freezing of the pipes.
Didn't have to worry about it.
Didn't have to worry about it. So that, our last big experience, we handled, even though it involved some litigation, and we actually went to court, our insurance company.
When there was a notification.
Yes, there was a notification.
Mr. Steele?
Yeah, I too am concerned, because it was a rolling situation. You didn't get the full understanding of it in terms of what the costs were going to be, and you let it go on the option of saying, whoa, we're going to include renting or leasing a lay-down spot in the contract rather than going to the expense to do this, and I don't know how they compare. But because you waited on that, or you let it go too far, that probably lost any economic benefit there might come from that kind of decision. It is now to the point where it's going to be usable for lay down, and but it's a huge cost. It's a huge cost.
Yeah, we're apologies, Chair. Yep. I have, off the top of my head, with the other bids from the contract, there were, some of the bids were an order of $2.5 million of off-site, moving it.
Transportation
Yeah.
and lease.
Right, so you are right, this is more than that. And this is not the best position to be in, but it is a piece of property that is developed for future use at this point.
Mr. Michaelis? Sorry.
So it has been explained to MLP what the proper process is. The proper process is, I think all of you know, when it appears that an organization, as a result of a contract, is going to exceed what the upper limit of the change order authority is, they have two different procedures to follow that they can't follow. One is they either shut the project down right then, or we come forward to the assembly and we get an additional change order authority. Or if the nature of the project is such that we have to keep going because of timeframes and everything else, then there is a procedure in which we can notify the assembly through an AIM that indicates that we have having problems with a particular project. We know that there's going to be some costs increases, and that there'll be a request coming forward for a change order increase. And at this time, we don't know what that amount is, and then we continue to keep you up to speed as to where we're at. So neither of those happened during this project. So that's the bottom line.
Well, I have to say, I'm surprised because Mr. Posey's been around for a long time, and as I said, I know you're standing there with a pretty sore back, but I think we missed something there. Any other questions? I have to say, I look at this site, and I wonder if we should have just put another generator on SPP. This is going to be an expensive project. But any other? Thank you, and I'm sure other assembly members will have some questions on Tuesday night once we work here.
It's a meeting tomorrow, they will.
Thank you.
Thank you.